basically, you know, a book like this doesn't affect the communities themselves. And I knew that when I started this book, ultimately the only reason to do the book was, I don't know, how do I say this without sounding corny, but to do my best to do the right thing. And I think it's the right thing to give back to those kids in the way that I know how. Why? Because the book wasn't supposed to take this long, and these guys, you know, one of them has a family, and for many years, you know, they were volunteers, and I think, you know, they always say it's like a band, you know, everybody fights, and, you know, like, but I think sometimes that's the process it's sometimes a creative process is sometimes unpleasant. But, I mean, I was talking to them today. The sum of it is a book that we're all proud of. And how did I convince them to stay? Oh, I just begged. I mean, there were times when I used guilt. I was like, you just threw your baby out the window. How could you do this? And eventually, but so they're here and they're committed, so.
How long did you stay?
From the time the research started, about 7 years. Like, the ideas began about 7 years ago. So, yeah.
I wondered more about the planning process. For, I don't know, a question, but for any one of the places you went or the people you talked to, did you make contacts before you went over? How did?
No. It's a good.
Contacts and how you know.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like in another life, or perhaps if work dries up, I can be a travel agent now. I mean, I am the best fucking trip planner there is. I feel like if you want to go somewhere dangerous, I'm your girl. I will find you good security and good places to stay and really interesting people to speak to. Basically, I mean, Amnesty International introduced me to a local human rights organization for the first 2 trips. Or actually the first 2, I would say. And from there, I worked with the local human rights organization where basically we discussed the stories to do. And then there were weeks and weeks of planning. And then organization of travel, and then the research and sending getting the research together and, you know, dealing with the currency, and in the case of Ingushetia, the insurance and the guards, which I'm not sure were needed on that trip. I mean, I think it must have been a way of an income. You know, it felt really silly, like wearing a cape the whole time with armed guards. But I mean, it was definitely a lot of planning that went involved. You can't really go to those places without doing a lot of planning. So.
For like particular women or children you spoke with, was that something like the human rights organizations kind of hooked you up with those people?
Theoretically, but you know, as I'm sure all of you have experienced, you make plans and then everything goes to shit when you get there. So basically we had lots of plans and we just they all went out the window, and we just, you know, in terms of the brothels, like on the Burmese border, I really didn't know who I was going to meet. So basically, and in terms of certainly the writing of the kids, you know, you don't know what you're going to get, so it was very improvisational once I got there, which is the spirit of the book, really working with the environment that we were in. I mean, in the case of the Malawi chapter, I don't know if anybody of you have had a chance to take a look at that. There was one person in particular who basically changed the way I thought about all of this. Instead of thinking about this is terrible what's happened to all of these people, she taught me about grace, and she taught me about kindness, and she taught me about the fact that in spite of these terrible things that had been done to her, she taught me that she deals with it every day in the most beautiful of ways. So, and she helped me one day because I got very lost, and she helped me find my way back to where I was supposed to be. I mean, literally lost on the side of a road. So the goal is, in terms of the Malawi program, is to give her a job. because she works in a gas station 7 days a week. And I should add that the creative writing program, the Malawi program, is a pilot project, but the goal is to employ local teachers. It's not run by us, because what do we know about running a program in a community that we don't live in? So, yep.
My question is, how well were you received when you said community by the, it's not necessarily people that you're working with, but by their peers, you know? Sometimes having a presence from the United States creates...
I'm Canadian.